From really, I think Metro, people will mostly know him from Metro UK. He was over at WWE Money in the Bank. He does great interviews for Metro. He is Alistair McGeorge joining us. Alistair, how you doing, buddy?
Not too bad. How are you both?
Doing well, doing well. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you
Oh,
for
thank you.
hanging out backstage as Andrew Zarian was giving us the layout of the garden.
I've managed to get to go on the tour a few years ago when I did Boston and New York for St. Patrick's Day to see Dropkick Murphys. And yeah, it was great to actually walk around, but I'd love to see a show there one day, man.
Same. I've done the tour too, and it's actually a lot of fun. I do recommend it for anyone who's just trying to kill some time in New York and looking for something fun to look at. Did they give you the glasses, the immersive experience glasses at the time?
No.
So they do that, and they bring you on stage, quote unquote, for one of Billy Joel's performances while he's doing Piano Man. So it's like you're on stage watching.
Oh, cool.
It's really cool. Yeah. So worth the money. Anyway, I guess since we're talking about Madison Square Garden, you want to give us the layout of the O2 since we're on.
To be fair, the Money in the Bank was the first time I've seen a sort of premium event or an actual TV taping or anything there. And yeah, it seemed to go really well. The crowd was hot. It was, I think, the right size for it. I do prefer, I guess, slightly smaller shows. It's the same for gigs as well, where the noise kind of carries a lot better. And yeah, I thought it suited really well for both nights. Like I said, I don't know how it came across on TV, but it seemed electric, at least being there.
Yeah, no, you can ask 100 people and they'll all give you the same answer. It was loud, it was hot, it was good, and yeah, the UK came to have a lot of fun at those two shows.
Yeah, that's it. The whole no, sorry, go on, Jeremy.
Oh, I was going to ask a question. You please give the UK experience.
It just there was a real buzz around it. Thankfully, sort of around the same. I wasn't sure if it'd carry as well as it did at Clash at the Castle, where Cardiff is a lot smaller. Everything was about a 50-minute walk, so it felt like the entire city was there for that. But thankfully, the O2, with kind of the mall sort of areas they've got around it, still carried that kind of atmosphere that everywhere you were looking, especially heading into the arena, it was just electric. So
I want to talk about this idea of WrestleMania in London because John Cena was out there pushing this. I saw you wrote about going to Undertaker's show, which I have questions about as well. And he also was like, yeah, WrestleMania in London, let's do this. How feasible, realistic do we think this actually is?
I'd love to say amazingly. It'd be great to get one over here. Like I do think things like Clash of the Castle and the way Money in the Bank went will have changed sort of the likelihood in terms of WWE and how they look at it, because it's clear these things are a success and the time zones don't necessarily matter quite as much. But there is the whole thing that WWE wants to be paid for these things. And I know sort of Naren was saying it last week when you were chatting to her, it's that whether London and the UK would pay for that to come to London, where they're not exactly in need of the tourism boom from it. So it's hard to say, but they sort of the coverage around Money in the Bank shows that there is the interest. Obviously, the BBC did a bit of coverage on the WrestleMania rumours. Damien Priest, the morning after Money in the Bank, was on a show we've got over here, Sunday Brunch, sort of a lifestyle cooking kind of chat show. So they were getting all sort of the mainstream coverage from it. So the appetite's clearly there. It's just, I guess it'll come down to the money, I suppose.
Wait, did Damien Priest cook anything on that show?
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I had a lot on this week, and I've not seen him on it, but I know he was there. He was there, sort of briefcase on the sofa, looking all chilled, and yes.
I would love to watch that go down. Him just trying to cook. I don't even care what. Just this is how
they still need to do that. Like Sami Zayn is obsessed with Great British Bake Off. I know he said in so many interviews with me how desperate he is to get on. Like they do a celebrity special once a year to raise money for sort of cancer charities. And he's told me he can't bake at all, but just having him on there and doing that kind of special. I know they used to do the Weakest Link back in the day with like Kane in his mask stood behind this podium asking pop culture questions and like stuff like that would be great.
And he'd win the damn thing.
He definitely should.
That's the problem with it. I wanted to ask because Naren said that while she was putting you over and Alex McCarthy, did you get your own bus for the media tour? Because that seemed to be a thing.
Unfortunately, I didn't. That seems to be people who were doing lots of video content, and I had only decided over WrestleMania weekend this year that maybe I should take a tripod. and have a sort of very old iPhone, which The Miz completely roasted me for while we were there getting ready for the interview, asking if my wireless mics would connect and all of this. So I think maybe Money in the Bank came too soon for me getting the bus treatment.
You just got to just punch Alex McCarthy and steal his bus. It's fine. You can take McCarthy. I mean,
I'm
I
not
know
sure
he
if you've
looks.
seen him. He's getting jacked now, though.
Oh, he's so jacked. He's got to get tested. I don't know if he's passing a USADA test. Honestly, that's what I worry about with McCarthy.
You see that photo of him with Omos? Come on, man. Something's going on.
He's jacked. It's honestly upsetting how big he is and how in shape he is. I tell people to punch him, and I'm like, I'm probably just getting you beat up, and I'm sorry for that that I'm trying to do that to you.
We've had things. We've both got some of the same shirts, and sometimes at junkets we've turned up almost wearing the same thing, and it's like I will look like his ventriloquist dummy if we stand near each other in any of the same stuff. Like, it's not a good look. So I don't fancy my chances punching him in the face.
The Undertaker's One Dead Man show. Tell us about this, because it's not like recorded from what I've seen. I've never seen. It seems like it's only a live experience, and I've heard people who like really enjoy it, who are, you know, maybe more casual wrestling fans, haven't heard these stories a million times, and then the people who have, it's like, oh, okay, you don't get like anything too new. You are deep in wrestling. You've interviewed the Undertaker, I'm pretty sure. So like I'm sure you've heard maybe a lot of these stories, but like being there, what was that actual show like?
I thought it was great. Like, yeah, I did interview him about 6-7 weeks ago, and to be honest, with some of the stuff, I tried to get some stories about him being in the UK and sort of asked for his wildest drunken night out away from the ring, and he was very coy on those and said, you know, you'll find out on the show. And in the end, it ended up being this story about him drinking Cypress Hill under the table, which was fantastic, and one I hadn't heard him talk too much about. So yeah, it was the actual part of the show that was him kind of going through his career and different stories was fascinating. The Q&A opened with a question about Hell in a Cell, and there was just a moment of, is this next 20 minutes or whatever going to be a complete buzzkill for me, where it's things he said so many times, but he did manage to keep it interesting. It was closer to a stand-up show than anything else. And clearly he's put a lot of thought into the writing of it, but interactions with the fans, there was this drunk guy kind of trying to heckle all the way through, and he just turned and absolutely hammered him, and really sort of lots of 4-letter words, and said, like, with a laugh, but was like, you need to shut up now. And yeah, the interaction was nice to see.
It's interesting. It's a very different take from others that I've heard when Taker was early in his show, where he was still trying to get his legs under him and understand like what this is, because it's not a 90-minute promo or a 60-minute promo.
Yeah,
there's a little more interaction. So it's good to see, better or worse in this case, that he has at least some interaction with the crowd, or at least engages them a little bit more by the sounds of it.
Yeah, it definitely, like, I wasn't sure how it'd go, because yeah, I'd kind of read things about it being very much a sort of not quite a spoken word show, but that kind of thing going through his career and all of that. But yeah, he did manage to joke with the fans, like with him mentioning WrestleMania was because people started chanting about it at the beginning, and he sort of took a bit of an aside. And yeah, he seemed sort of quite comfortable with it. Even if he was going off on tangents, he brought it back to where he was going before and wasn't losing his place. And yeah, it seems like he's getting very confident with it.
I want to get your thoughts on going back to press junkets and going to these events and things. I've had the experience of sitting in the press conferences for WWE shows and an AEW show. And I was asked this question yesterday, and I want to ask this to you. How do you navigate that kayfabe vortex world of a post-show press conference, whether it's WWE, AEW, whatever it is?
I try to avoid kayfabe absolutely where possible. Just because, and WWE know this too, or AEW, whoever you're there with, that you're there to do a job, especially with it being the Metro, which, you know, with a more mainstream outlet, it's the angle we should be going for the more true life stories. And, you know, being sat there and, you know, in the last junket the press conference, asking Triple H about WrestleMania, because it's the questions you should be asking about. And he's open to that kind of thing when he's been asked about, I think it was after WrestleMania when Cody Rhodes got brought up, and I think it was, you know, a discussion of how he balances, you know, the stories he has in his mind compared to the crowd suddenly getting behind someone. And I think that's the kind of line you have to go in. Like there's some, I think it depends what you're going for. If you're going for sort of video content, that kind of thing, playing it kayfabe will get you some good clips, especially people like Pretty Deadly, LA Knight, The Miz. But I do prefer to kind of avoid kayfabe where possible and, yeah, try and get a bit more into the people themselves.
Very important question, because Joel buried everyone who wore a wrestling shirt. So when we want to talk about etiquette, like how do you feel if somebody wears like a WWE shirt as a member of the press, or an AEW shirt?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to sort of slag anyone off for what they're doing for while they're there. But like me personally, I prefer not to. But then saying that, at the junket, I had a sort of designer shirt with Mysterio masks on it, but it wasn't quite as obvious, a bold sort of wrestling T-shirt kind of thing. But it's things like for the junket, this time I had a Sami Zayn T-shirt on underneath a shirt that was buttoned up to make sure that while I was walking around afterwards and wasn't doing work, I was kind of relaxed and everything. But for the actual junket, it was very much covered up and looking a bit more professional. And I just think, yeah, especially if you're going to be on camera and things as well, it's important, and you do want to look like a professional. But I know obviously people do want to be comfortable at these things as well, so I wouldn't want to kind of disparage anyone if they did decide to wear a wrestling T-shirt or whatever. But yeah, it's generally I try and avoid it.
It's fair. Again, and it's just like you were talking about your angles for your stories. It's everyone is approaching these things differently. And when I said it, I was more just like, I don't really, and this is my own bias, I don't understand why people feel the need to wear a wrestling shirt at a wrestling show when they're covering it. It's, again, it's not it's not making fun of anyone, it's not slagging anyone. It's just like, don't get it. But you know, it makes sense.
I'm just trying to get you in trouble, Joel. You know this.
I know you are, but I also feel that, and I know that our viewers and our listeners they understand it. But I also I feel the need to like kind of double down, just be like, yeah, I get why we're doing this, but I also want to make it known that there's nothing wrong with it. It's just something I notice.
Yeah, that's it. And I think there's times I've done it where if I've been at a show and there's been no kind of media duties and things, and I'm just there at the show, I've definitely worn one. But if I know I'm going to be there doing interviews and chatting to these people or doing the press conferences, saying that, I've just remembered I definitely was wearing an Eddie Guerrero T-shirt at Clash in the Castle, which kind of undermines everything I've just said. But generally, I definitely try not to. I promise.
Now who's the problem, Jeremy Lambert?
There's nothing wrong with an Eddie shirt. Come on now. Like Eddie Guerrero's just universally loved. I know he's like mainly known for WWE and everything, but that's just universal wrestling love T-shirt. So
yeah, I think I'm doing it. I try not to wear. I definitely wouldn't wear one for someone I know I'm going to be talking to that day and that kind of thing, or sort of current roster members, and like I do try and avoid it for that.
You should have worn a Brock Lesnar shirt, and then when you interview Cody Rhodes as he's up there, be like, "Hey, how do you feel about Brock Lesnar?" And always attacking you and not show it. Yeah, and then just like really prominently display the shirt, puff the chest out so they can see it and everything. That's how you get it done. I want to talk about All In, which is coming to Wembley. Are you covering All In?
I'm hoping to. With annoyingly, there's train strikes, sort of rail strikes that weekend. So I'm trying to find out how I can make it work in between shifts on the Monday morning and the Friday and that kind of thing. But
I'm sorry, hold on. Specifically that weekend, there are rail strikes. Like they've planned that far ahead.
Just planned, yeah.
They've announced them for that weekend, so
they know something. They're angling for something. Good on them. And that's smart. Sorry, continue, please.
Yeah, so that's it. If I'm hoping I can find a way to make it work and get back on the Sunday, because I live up in Manchester, so a few hours away, a couple of hours on the train if it was running. So I just need to figure that out. But I'm hoping to be there. Like I really don't want to miss it.
Dude, Tony's gonna pay all these people just out of pocket of like, we got to get these trains running this weekend. We are not having no type of strike for this weekend. So here we go. Here's all the cash that you need. Coming to Wembley, Tony Khan, I listened to an interview today. He says it's at about 70,000 tickets sold right now. When this was first announced, and I think they've opened it up for about 88,000 in that arena. When this was first announced, like what were your expectations and how are you feeling now with everything that has gone into this?
I think the day it got announced, I'd have thought 40,000 would have been fantastic for them, and not just for them, just a wrestling show getting that many at Wembley, especially after how Clash had done as well. I thought, yeah, 40k would have been really strong number for AEW, but they've shown that that was massively conservative. The appetite's clearly there. They've got the people coming over from Europe. I'm sure people are going to come from the States. And yeah, wrestling seems to be hot right now and doing very well in the UK. And it's very encouraging that they're pulling that kind of number already without announcing a match either.
Is there a match that you think would start really driving those ticket sales up again?
It's hard to tell. I think, confirming what Punk's going to be doing would probably help, I think. Unfortunately, with Danielson's injury, it's hard to know if he's going to be around, but that would have been something special, announcing what he was going to be doing. I'm just not sure. It's hard because, like I say, I was expecting it to be around 40k, and I was so surprised, really pleasantly. It's so exciting to see this kind of attention being paid. So I'm just not sure. Yeah, it'll just be nice seeing the card take some shape.
Well, you're over there. So let's say they announce Kenny and Will Ospreay 3. Is Kenny, not Kenny, well, Kenny too, but is Will Ospreay, in the eyes of UK wrestling fans, a big enough name to be facing Kenny Omega to start moving those tickets, in your opinion?
I'm not sure because he does work a lot over here, which kind of, that was the whole debate when it was like what British wrestlers should be on the card, sort of attractions, giving sort of indie veterans the kind of chance to appear. And it's like, I assume these tickets are selling because people want to see AEW in a stadium rather than a UK show on a big scale. And obviously Will is definitely an exception to that, and he definitely deserves a spot on this card, and him and Kenny doing it there would be a fantastic get for them. Like, there's no doubt there.
Is a Goldberg match going to push this to 90,000? I don't know how big Goldberg is in England. We talked about it like a month ago at this point. Like, Goldberg really hadn't worked a whole lot in England. He did that one tour with WCW, but this was, of course, 2 decades ago, almost 3 decades ago at this point. But like, is a Goldberg match big enough? Sting said he's not going to retire at Wembley. He said he's still got a little bit left, but at Goldberg, is he selling out this building?
Things got to go to Israel after that.
Yeah, true. Very true.
I think he could be. Because even when he was in WWE, there were sort of, the evidence was there about him sort of popping ratings when he came back. Like, it was shown that he was still a draw. I think, I don't want to say casual fans, but you think you'd get people who necessarily weren't aware of AEW wanting to come and see him potentially. I guess it depends what you do with him, who you'd have him against, whether it be try and build up sort of like Powerhouse Hobbs, someone like that, or whether you'd go, the Sting match and try and get that kind of attention for it. But from what Tony said, he's talked to him, so it seems, it's not an impossibility.
Before I let you go, Alistair, I want to get just your overall thoughts on the Bloodline angle, because at Money in the Bank, it was, Jay pinning Roman. Then we had the fallout from that on SmackDown with the long segment, the 40-minute segment to open up SmackDown. As someone who has covered this and has paid attention to all of this since it started, like, what are just your overall thoughts on the Bloodline angle?
Yeah, I'm still loving it. Even though it was sort of 1 a.m. our time on Friday night, I was still really excited and engaged by it. Sort of, even with it taking up as much of the show as it didn't feel that long to me watching it. And I think the interesting thing is what they're showing now with everything they're doing with Jay, with Roman, the way everything has kind of come full circle, is that there was definitely stubbornness, I think, with not putting the belt on Sami or Cody. But it seems like maybe it was the right choice when you got kind of that reaction to Roman finally being pinned by Jay to really, like I say, bring everything full circle. Like, it seems a bit more poetic and a bit more rewarding that you are going back to that from a few years ago. So I think they're still hitting the right notes for me, at least.
This is my last question for you. Are you a musician? Am I seeing this right?
Yeah, I've not been able to do as much of it for a while. I did it a lot before I started doing wrestling more as a job and covering that, and suddenly going a bit deeper, but was also in a very loving relationship the last few years. And it turns out all I can really write are very sad songs. So there's not really been the inspiration there, but I'm trying to get back into it. A couple of bits coming up over summer, hopefully, and yeah, enjoying it still.
So that's your bread and butter was like acoustic style, like coffee house sad songs.
Like, well, I tried to go the kind of pop punk, ska punk route of really depressing lyrics, but hopefully quite catchy still, and kind of masked that bit while I'm playing it. But
Gotcha.
yeah, had a lot of fun with it, and still hoping to do bits. I think now that this is sort of the day to day, I can enjoy the music more without thinking maybe I should try and pursue it, which definitely years and years ago before COVID I was thinking about, but now I'm just trying to find time for it to be a really fun hobby again, really.
I love hearing you say that, because I've been kind of struggling to get back into music myself. I was touring and I was doing all that going into the pandemic, and then pandemic shut everything down. I was literally on the road and I haven't done much either. So actually hearing that, the idea of just like enjoying it again is something I'm trying to wrap my head around. I'm glad I'm not alone. So thank you.
Yeah, that's it. It's come like just doing little bits of open mics, and my partner, she's a musician too, much better than I am, and doing little bits of shows together and things. It's just been fun getting back into that, and yeah, like I say, just the thrill of it again.
That's amazing. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad that you two are also able to like musically collaborate and do your thing. It's fun.
Yeah, and I've just about managed to get her into wrestling as well, so it's all
it's all down here. So
yeah.
Trust me, it's a weird thing when you bring your partner into that world. It's weird.
Yeah, I massively sold it wrong. Like I tried to pitch it as sort of the theatre and the drama. I was like, here's Gargano and Ciampa. It's been going on for years. Here's what the spitting on the wedding ring. And it was terrible. She watched the first WrestleMania in a bar. I think it was Mania 35, which was not the best one for her to have to sit through 8 hours of this at finishing at 5, 6 in the morning. But from the beginning, she sort of looked at it and said, why didn't you just tell me it was Drag Race with fighting? And I'm like, yeah.
That's a good way to describe it.
She's like, I'd have been all for it. And yeah, so I picked it wrong, but thankfully she's managed to get into it with people like Pretty Deadly, Bianca, all those kinds.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Alistair, thank you so much for joining us, Alistair. That was fantastic.
No,
thanks, man.
No, great. It's been good to sort of meet you both, and yeah, hopefully come on again soon.
Cheers. Let everyone know where they can find you at before we let you go.
Yeah, Alistair McGeorge on Twitter, and then metro.co.uk, I think it's /tag/WWE has all the wrestling content there. Yeah, I've got more stuff dropping from Money in the Bank, hopefully very soon, and another piece to come from The Undertaker that I held back from the paper, chatting about Bray Wyatt, which hopefully people will enjoy. So yeah, all of that fun stuff.
Wonderful.
I have finally learned how to spell your name correctly when I write articles, because I know I've tweeted this, but like I always typed Alistair McGregor because I was typing Conor McGregor so much. I would always just do Alistair McGregor, and I'd catch it. I'd know I'd do it. Like, oh, here comes the mistake, and like I'd fix it. But now I'm not typing that guy's name as much anymore because it just doesn't do anything. So I get McGeorge on the first type now, and I'm very proud of myself. But
so that's impressive, yeah.
Your name was one that I'd always just get wrong, even though I had to type. I typed it so much because you do a lot of fantastic interviews. Like
thank you.
We cover your stuff a lot because like you get good answers out of these people. So if you've not checked out Alistair's work, you should do that.
I appreciate that. Thanks very much, man.
Thank you, Alistair. Enjoy the rest of your day, buddy.
Cheers. Take care.